Hey friends, welcome to the Raising Boys and Girls podcast. I'm Sissy Goff.
And I'm David Thomas.
And I'm Melissa Trevathan.
And we're so glad you've joined us for this conversation. Let's dive in.
We are so excited to tell you and share with you about one of our favorite conversations we've really ever had on the podcast. These two were delightful. We couldn't have said it enough.
We could not have enjoyed ourselves more.
Tell them a little bit about Shawn and Andrew East.
After retiring from gymnastics in 2012, Olympic gold medalist Shawn Johnson East has continued her success story with a New York Times bestselling book, a career in broadcast, a mirror ball trophy after winning Dancing with the Stars.
I can't even believe that.
I know. And has launched several businesses alongside her husband, former NFL player Andrew East. As proud parents to two kids and one on the way, these two, as we talk about on this episode, are a delightful follow on YouTube and Instagram. You need to find your way to following them.
And even more delightful in person.
Yes,
two of the kindest humans I think we've ever sat with.
Indeed. Enjoy our conversation with these remarkable folks.
You guys, it is such a gift to get to sit down with y'all and have you in our space at Daystar. We talked about getting ready for y'all. We have never had two professional athletes, a gold medalist from the Olympics and an NFL player in one sitting in one room. It's just amazing.
Thank you.
And not just that, but y'all are such kind people and you're doing so much good in the world, changing the lives of families and your own little people too. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, just an honor to get to sit with y'all and have this conversation.
Thank you. We're really excited.
I think when y'all interviewed me, I had to make sure on my way out, I was like, will y'all be on our podcast?
Yes.
Because I wanted to make sure we got you one of these days. So grateful.
We are so grateful. And speaking of your amazing little people, we want to hear about them, but will you go back a step and first tell us how the two of you met?
You got it, baby.
Okay. So I retired right before the 2012 Olympic Games.
How old were you?
I was 20. I was 20 at the time.
Okay.
I was trying to make a second one. Retired right before it. Ended up going to the games anyways to work. Wow. I found myself at a track cycling Olympic event. So like Lance Armstrong kind of. And met one of the USA athletes named Guy East. We hit it off. We just started talking. We were talking about books, about everything in life. And at the end of it, he was like, you know what? I think you'd be perfect for my younger brother. I want to introduce you. And
let's go. Big bro. Making plays.
Yeah. And we flew back to the United States. He kind of set us up on like a blind date, but it was like a double date.
Where were you each living at the time?
I was in Los Angeles.
Okay.
Kind of doing like the media circuit.
Sure.
Andrew is in Nashville at Vanderbilt.
Yep.
Playing
football.
And I think you tweeted at me back then.
I formed my first social media account just to shoot my shot to get Shawn.
With her.
And
wow.
It worked.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But we went on kind of like a blind date, impromptu in Los Angeles. Evidently, I hooked him. He didn't quite hook me. I was just so busy. I didn't mean that in a bad way. You were so sweet. But it took 9 months of persuasion. And he convinced me to fly out to Nashville. We went on a second date. And I called my mom on the second date. And I was like, I think I'll marry this guy.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So then it was our third date that we did beekeeping.
You got to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
Well, we're so glad to be with Sissy and David, and we brought a gift for them, which is some family honey.
Yeah.
And we were telling the story that one of the first interactions between Shawn and I was me throwing her into the beehives and seeing how she reacted, which one of her biggest fears is bees. And you kind of stared that fear right in the face.
Way to go.
And dealt with it.
Well,
that's the test.
He also didn't tell you that our third date was he took me home to meet his family.
Wow.
So I was beekeeping with his family. No. And I was like,
goodness.
Shawn,
I either am going to like run very far from this or dive all in.
I'm so glad your second date you thought this is the guy, because it would have taken that to go on the third date.
And then
wow,
we're getting way too into the weeds. But the fourth date was then his brother's wedding.
Wow.
I mean,
we
hit it hard.
Yeah.
Y'all. And then
Yeah.
how long did it take you to get engaged from there?
2 years.
Still 2 years.
Really?
I was only a sophomore when we
Yeah.
met. So I finished
Oh.
college and then we got engaged after that.
I moved to Nashville 4 or 5 months after we started dating.
Okay.
And we dated and just had like normal dating life for 2 years.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It was a good time.
Wow. And then got married in, I don't know what year we're on now.
2016.
2016.
April 2016.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
It's
then had
getting
our first
serious
baby
now.
2019. So
Things are getting serious.
Things are getting
Yeah.
serious.
Yeah.
So will you talk a little bit about your kids?
yeah, our babies are amazing. In 2019, we had our daughter, Drew, and she is everything that I'm not.
Oh.
She is a little princess. She bleeds pink. She's an empath. She just like everybody's emotions affect her. She's so smart. She's so fun. And then our son, we had in 2021, Jet, and he lives life wide open.
Mm-hmm.
He is the kindest little thing, but he is terrifyingly fearless in every aspect of life.
I feel like, I was always excited for kids, but it was more of like a responsibility or like I just always knew I wanted them. But no one tells you how fun it is, dude.
Aw,
oh my
that's
gosh.
so great.
It's a blast. Some of the time, some of the time it's not. But most of the time, it's like the highest peaks in life.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, it's great.
But they're amazing. And then third one.
I was about to say.
Yeah. Third one comes in 8 weeks, 7 weeks.
Yeah.
We don't know what we're having. Surprise. But I'm sure they'll give us a run for our money, whatever.
Y'all.
Yeah.
That's so fun. And if you're not following them on Instagram, we were going to talk about that later, but I just can't help myself right now because y'all are one of the most fun Instagram follows on that I have.
It's all a lie.
It's so cute and fun. It's so endearing. Y'all make me laugh all the time.
Thank
You're
you.
brilliant with it. And it's a lot of work. It could be a job in itself.
It is. But we have fun with it.
And your Instagram handle is?
Shawn Johnson East.
Andrew D. East.
Yeah.
But Shawn's is way better. So.
No.
They're so fun.
Thank you.
And we get to see those little cuties all the time. Yes.
I know.
So, okay. And then besides family life, you have created this media company called Family Made Media. You're hosting a parenting conference.
Yes.
You have your own podcast. I mean, y'all really are making a difference in so many spaces. And we're so grateful for the work you're doing. Will you talk a little bit about a common thread through all those things? Yeah. You probably have books on the way that I feel like there's so many things going.
We actually do have one book on the works.
We're just starting, so it'll probably take 2 years.
Yeah.
But I'm really excited.
We're really excited about it.
Y'all. Yeah. Can you say what it is? Or is it too early?
Well, it kind of ties into the common thread you were talking about, which, by the way, books are my love language.
Oh,
and
good.
your gift of a bag of books, I'm so pumped about. So
Andrew reads like a book every few days, probably.
That's awesome.
But the common thread, so we had considered writing a book, and I'll answer your question about, how do all these things that we do tie together by talking about the book that we have on the way, because we were toying with this concept and we didn't want to do a book on marriage because it's like, we don't know anything. We don't know anything. And we're not, legit counselors like you guys are. So we hesitate to give advice in that realm. Also, we don't know much about parenting. We're just like figuring it out on the fly.
Still figuring it out.
We do invest a lot of time in reading and learning about the subjects. But we thought the one through line between our athletic careers, our current career of like media, and we'll put out 3,000 pieces of content this year, which is fun. It's become a whole thing.
It's a lot.
That's amazing.
All centered around.
And a big piece of content with a baby. That's a lot happening.
But all the things we try to talk about are like encouraging and uplifting families, because I feel like families is such an amazing platform and interface to teach all the things about the world, And so whether it's politics or technology or sexuality, I feel like family is the spot that we need to focus on. And so we've tried to create conversations around that thing, but having a sense of commitment through it all is what we feel like is a through line. My career athletically is way different than Shawn's. She was committed in a really beautiful way, and she was also really talented. And my journey of of athletics was commitment with probably less talent. But the story is like, you know, you do something different, or you do something enough for long enough, and that compounds, you know, like we're so familiar with compounding interest with finances, but what about applying that to all areas of life, like habits with your kids or habits with your marriage? And so that's kind of what we're focused on and really excited about. Like, what does life look like 20 years from now if we keep walking down this path? So that was a long-winded answer, but yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
It makes me super excited. Yeah.
That's fun.
Well, and I love that you mentioned sports because we talk a lot in our offices with families about kids and sports. We talk a good bit on this podcast, and we are so excited to talk with the two of you. You are so overqualified to talk about this topic out of your lived experience. And we just would love to begin by asking you all, like, what did your parents do to foster a love of sports?
Oh my gosh. This is a topic I'm very passionate about. I have had the privilege of coaching very young ones across every level and talent, and dealt with parents through everything. So we talk about this a lot, but both of our parents, we have a very common theme between both of our parents and our upbringing, which was they just like tried to foster opportunity more than anything.
Wow. And
my parents, I had a rule in our household, which was like, I always had to do something. I always had to stay busy. I couldn't sit in front of the TV for the whole night. I had to have an activity of some kind, but whatever that was, they didn't care. We just had to stay busy.
Wow.
And they put me in soccer, violin, piano, debate, gymnastics, dance, swimming, all these things. And
Shawn's really good at debate as well. I know firsthand.
Hey, my coach always told me I should be a lawyer. I know why. But the common trend of it was whenever things would kind of clash within the schedule, my parents would sit me down and say, like, what do you love more? And they never said, you're better at this than the other one, so you should probably do this. They said, what do you love more? What do you want to like continue doing? And gymnastics always was number one. So it was the last. I mean, my parents would try to get me to like skip gymnastics practice just so we could like have a family day. And I'd be like, well, I love it so much. And they just always made sure it was like my dream and not theirs, which I loved.
Wow. That's awesome.
I'd be so curious to get your guys' take on this. I feel like the youth sports industry the last 15 years has gotten
is toxic.
Wacky.
Wild.
Yes. Toxic's a great word.
Oh, man. I grew up in Indianapolis, and they just built this massive compound. What is it called? Grand Park. A couple years ago, where it's like all youth sports, and every weekend it's packed with like, you know, some percentage of parents who are banking on their 5-year-old turning pro or getting a scholarship. And it's like, dang.
Which won't happen if you make that decision at 5.
Yeah.
I can guarantee it won't happen.
I just feel like there are, you know, it's like if you focus on that as the end goal, then you miss all the beauty that is our surrounding sport. I am so thankful for sport in my life. I was the middle of 5 kids. My dad was a college football player, and he also did like Ironman triathlons, was a insane athlete. He actually started, you know, Clydesdale divisions and like triathlons. He started that.
He founded
whole thing.
that.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's a big dude.
He was 260 pounds and loved it.
6'5".
Yeah, he was huge.
Yeah.
But so my 2 older brothers were always doing sports, and I was just, you know, trying to keep up with them. But what I loved, as I reflect how my experience was different than some of my peers, is one, you know, starting at age like 8, there were peers of mine who would do travel baseball all year long or travel soccer all year long. We did 3 or 4 sports a year all the way through high school. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, I did get a scholarship to Vanderbilt, but I was never only football for me. And when I think about the conversations my dad would have with us in the car after games, it was not like, Andrew, hey, you know, if you gotta bend your knees a little bit more and like pop, you know, it was not technical or strategic. It was like, oh my gosh, that was so fun. You did so good with this. Where do you guys want to eat? Like, it was just like fun, you know? And that was, I feel like that makes all the difference. And it's those little things that add up. And I learned so much, and I'm glad that I had some amount of talent and that it worked out. But I'm also super glad that I learned so much from sport because
you're very talented.
No, thank you, babe. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
He self-deprecates his football career a lot.
Aw.
Oh man.
So can we go back to what you
Please?
said about at 5? I
Oh my
guarantee
gosh. Yes.
that it won't happen. Will you say more about
If
that?
you make a decision for your child that young and you like project it onto your kid, you're taking away the entire foundation of what sports for kids is supposed to be. A kid will be good and they'll be successful if they enjoy it and they choose it.
Yeah.
And I see so many times parents will be like, my 6-year-old's going to the Olympics. And I'm like, well, now that you say it, she's not going to, because you're putting that pressure on a little kid to make you feel proud as a parent. I don't know, to live up to your expectations. And if it's not their choosing, they're not going to work through the hardship. They're not going to work through the injuries, the obstacles that come. And it's just, I've seen it so much. I've had parents actually like drop their kids off and she's like, oh, she doesn't want to be here today. You know, can you just like convince her? And I'm like, no, I need you to take her home because it's actually really dangerous. And to see all these parents are like, what team do I need to put them on at 4 to make sure they make the major leagues? It's like, well, I don't think it exists.
Gymnastics is crazy. Families will move across the country to go to a certain gym so that one of their 4 kids can get coached by this specific coach that hopefully will lead them to the Olympics. And it's like, that is pretty destructive. You know what I'm saying? But what's your guys' take? I'm curious.
Oh, y'all, it's so good to hear you say that. I'm so grateful because we're sure seeing more of that. I don't remember where we were speaking right now this past weekend, but
Tampa,
thank you. You were just talking about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, about balance in sports and how off kilter we've gotten.
Well, and I think we are asked so often, why are the numbers so high for kids and anxiety, and what are the contributing factors? And there's just no question that overscheduling is a piece of that, and in the athletic space, and the pressure kids experience to everything you all are describing. And I loved when you were talking about your experience, because that was mine. It's like almost everybody I knew played at least 3 or 4 sports. It was this sense of you just rotate to the next one, and then it's something new and it's something fun, as opposed to kids feeling this pressure like, I hope I figured out my thing by 4th grade. It's like, no, you should still be trying on sports like shirts and figuring out, I like the way this fits. I don't like the way this fits. And the discovery piece that you talk so well about, that I think we've robbed a lot of youth athletic experiences of.
Yes.
Well, and it's such a common conversation that kids are having now. Like you said, you have to have it figured out by 4th grade.
Yes.
That kids feel a pressure to be good at such a young age. And we've talked about gymnastics, obviously. Our daughter is in gymnastics and she loves it. But my worst fear is that a coach won't let her be bad because they'll expect like lineage and genetics to make her good. And kids should be miserably horrible at a lot of things.
Yes.
And be proud of it. One of my coach was a godsend. He is the coolest guy in the whole entire world. And he came from China, born and raised, competed there his whole life. He moved to the United States and opened a gym, and he said his goal was to raise children who are also children who are successful in their sports.
Wow.
And we had limits as to how long we could practice. He would take us to Dairy Queen afterwards. If we fell flat on our face at a competition, he'd be the one in the corner jumping up and down saying, I'm so proud of you. Wow. It was just, he was so good at making sure we were kids and we were having fun in our sport. And there were a lot of really good gymnasts because of that. I think failure has made such a horrible thing to kids these days.
Yes.
Because parents are having these conversations around their kids at such a young age of, I'm going to take you to this place because that's your greatest likelihood of going to the major leagues. Like you're already putting in kids' minds the expectation that you have to be good. Whereas like you said, your dad never talked about, were you good or bad? It was just, I'm proud of you.
Yes. That was fun.
It's like that performance driven.
Yes. For boys and girls. I mean, I've never heard it as much in girls as I have in the last 5 years. And it feels like, it definitely feels like sports, but it feels like every aspect of life, average and
Mhm.
failure both.
Mhm.
We can't fail and we can't be average. I mean, I was a very average, I wouldn't even say an athlete. The sports that I participated in, I was worse than average. Probably in all of them I did. And it was fine.
Yeah.
It wasn't a thing.
Yes.
And now I don't even know that. I know kids who don't have some sport that they feel incredible pressure to excel at.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, and I think
just so
to
good.
like further on the question, Andrew, you asked, it was like my coach, the only thing he cared about was effort.
Yes.
He didn't care about mistakes or placements or success or quote failure, whatever we deem that these days. The only thing he cared about is like, did you give it your all? And if that meant falling flat on your face in a major competition, he'd be so happy for you. And he'd be like, let's go back and try some more.
Because you're pushing boundaries.
Yeah.
Failure is like an indication that you're doing things that you haven't done before.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because like if a
I
kid
just-
comes
That's
home
a
with a
good
test
statement.
and they failed on it, but they tried so hard, they're just not good at math, you wouldn't be like, oh, I'm disappointed in you. You'd be like, it's okay. We'll work on it. I'm proud that you tried.
It's good. You all
good.
should write a book.
I will say, sorry, I'm sorry. I
No.
was just listening to this podcast.
Please
that-
keep going.
someone recommended I listen to this podcast about a Hungarian father who had 3 kids, and he was determined to raise geniuses. He wrote a book on it and everything. Have you heard of this?
No.
And so his hypothesis was that you'll know by the age of 5 whether your kid is a genius or not. And he was testing this.
Wow.
And I know it's a lot of,
Which is
so he forced them.
Toxic.
He
Yes.
forced them to. He wanted to experiment with this theory by putting them in chess.
He also had kids for the experiment, just so we know the basis of this conversation.
Wow.
And they ended up being really good at chess, but it just has challenged me where I'm like, I really do believe that everyone on earth that God has made, like, is put here for a purpose, like special
Mhm.
purpose, and has unique skills and gifts.
Yeah.
But how do you balance that with maybe not being like the number 1 chess player in the world or an Olympic gold medalist? There's a little tension there, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, just
And
something
it seems like it comes back to, what do you love? You
Yeah.
know, that God has put these passions in our hearts that are
Mhm.
going to lead us. What's the Beekner quote about?
World's greatest need.
And yes. And
Mhm.
your greatest passion or
Yeah.
something like that? Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, I'm going to look it up.
That's good.
Okay, I'm going to look it up as we all talk about, is there anything that you wish, which it doesn't sound like, I mean, it sounds like your parents both did an amazing job, but you wish you had done differently along the way?
With our parents?
Just with
Or
your
with our
athletic.
babies?
Yes. No, as you were growing up.
Oh.
Like,
Oh. This comes from my coaches and my parents. They both had this, like, they must have had a conversation at some point and like agreed on this concept. But they told me never to believe or dwell on regrets. Like, regrets shouldn't be a thing.
wow.
Because my coach, he always said, like, mistakes, failures, setbacks, poor choices, whatever, are just learning opportunities. And so whenever we got asked, even in interviews, and he was always there, what's your biggest regret? What would you change? He would like cut it off and he'd be like, no,
Wow.
she learned from it, which is great. So we're going to move forward. And so it's really hard for me because I've had that mindset for so long.
I think that should be the answer to that question.
So
I think
I'm sure there's
good.
things I would change, but it all brought me here. So
Yeah.
I regret. No, I don't know. I don't
Good.
know.
I love that.
No regrets.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, like I wish I wouldn't have made certain mistakes,
But they were
But,
learning opportunities
yeah.
still. Yeah.
I wish I recognized earlier on that it was okay to not be good at everything. You know what I'm saying? I always felt this kind of need I had to be really good at school and all the, math and history and science. I have to get straight A's, and there's like pressure behind that. And then I also have to be good at every single sport that I play. And I think that kind of misses a point where I ended up going to school at Vanderbilt studying engineering because I was better at English and I wanted to like make myself more well-rounded, which I don't know. I'm sure there's probably good aspects of working on your weaknesses, but I also think there's really good aspects of focusing on your strengths
And
so
giving yourself some grace along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it applies athletically and as well as in other areas of life where it's like, recognize that I'm good at some things and I'm bad at some things. that's a lesson I learned in
Mhm.
marriage is like, Shawn's good at some things and she's bad at some things. Sorry.
Well, thanks.
And I'm good at some things and I'm bad at, and that's actually beautiful. Like it lends itself to this like teamwork. That's what I wish I would have recognized earlier.
Yeah. I love that.
We really cannot ask the two of you enough in this space because you've so much wisdom out of your lived experience.
Yes.
And is there anything else that you would say with the perspective that you have right now to parents of student athletes?
A lot. We have had a lot of conversations about it. We've seen it with our friends who are having babies. We've seen it with a lot of people that you have such a plan for your child before they even come into the world. You're like, I'm going to deliver them this way. They're going to go to this school. They're going to be this person. They're going to probably be a gymnast and be really good. They're going to be coached by this. And we've just realized firsthand that like our job is not to create a life for our kids. It's to like figure out what they love and help foster the life that they want. And it takes a lot of humility as a parent to be like, it's not my life. It is my baby's life and my kid's life. And I feel like you see so many times with parents, it's almost like they want success for themselves more than the kid wants it, which is not the kid's dream. It's the parent's dream. And so I would just say like reality checks in the mirror every day of, am I doing this for me because I want my kid to be successful? Or is it actually something my kid wants to do? Like our daughter hates soccer at 3. I mean, she might come back around. But we were like, you got to go to soccer because it's whatever. And it got to be the point where I was like, actually, you don't need to. You miserably hate this. You want to be in dance. So
I will say, and would love feedback from you two on this. I think it's a fine line between instilling certain principles that I view as really valuable, like discipline and following through on commitments. Shawn and I differ a little bit. If we sign up for a semester of soccer, we're gonna do it in my mind. And I'm not here to force the kids to do something.
3.
Yeah, 100%.
It's a little harder,
but understanding where that line is of instilling principles while not trying to force something, I think is really tough. And that requires discernment. I think it requires like really good community and honesty and honestly like a strong marriage where it's like, hey, are we doing this too much or too little? Are we being too soft? Are we being
love
too
that
hard?
y'all are checking each other on it and talking through
it.
And even what a gift to your kids that you have different opinions. Because you're going to bring different perspectives for them in everything, but even in this.
Yeah. I don't want people listening to this to think like, oh, we're just soft and like follow your heart. Which, because I think it is a role as a parent to instill certain things, and that's going to be a hard road sometimes.
Well, and a clear example is like we're in the school process because our daughter goes into pre-K next year. And it's like, okay, who has great athletic programs and opportunities, but also has art programs. And so we're stuck in the middle of like, we want phenomenal opportunities for our children. But then it's like, are we doing that because we came from really good athletic upbringings? Or, so.
Can you guys, are we on base with this? Are we way off base?
I feel like, I mean, I would be curious what you would say, but I think balance is found in the struggle to find balance.
Yeah.
You know, so even that you're thinking about schooling from all those different aspects and just bringing them up in all those different ways. Because, I mean, I totally agree with you that commitment is really important. And we see a lot of families who say, you can stop whatever this is after we finish the season. And I have been to a lot of 3 and 4-year-old soccer games in the last 2 years with my nephew, and the amount of sitting on quilts and having snacks and running around the field, they don't even know they're playing soccer half the time. And so, I mean, I think it's both perspectives, but man, I mean, just sitting with the two of you, I trust y'all so much as parents.
Thank you.
Seriously, just the thoughtfulness you're putting into it. And I think one of the things that we try to say a lot is, you know your kids better than anybody. And so to trust your gut, you're going to know. And it's great if your gut's coming from different perspectives because you two seem like the kind of people that are going to talk it out till you get there. You know, in a great way.
The scary part is if we trust our gut, our son will be Evil Knievel. Or BMX guy?
Yes, that's good.
He gets that from his mom, just, for sure.
That's awesome.
I also, my last thought on that would be, like, it is really good to have goals for your kids, but I think making those goals things like the values or the principles that you're trying to take, like, hey, I want my son, this has been really good as we've had a 4-year-old daughter now, like to remind her, hey, I want you to be loving, joyful, kind, curious, all these things, and focusing on that as the end goal, not I want you to be an Olympic gymnast.
Yeah.
I want you to be a straight A student. So keeping the main thing.
Yes. Great. So we're in this season of our podcast, we're talking about ages and stages of kids. Y'all are firmly entrenched in stage 1.
Oh, yeah.
And I can't wait. I don't know if y'all have encountered David's Wild Things material, but I'm so excited for you two. I mean, just what y'all are saying about him. I love the active, aggressive, and curious are his 3 words to describe boys in stage 1, which y'all are.
That is our son. Yeah.
So if you had to say what's the best and the hardest part of this stage, what would you say?
I would say the best part with both of our kids is just the curiosity to see like how curious they are is so much fun to me. Seeing Jet try to go down a massive hill on a bike and get terrified, but then want to do it again is like really fun. The hardest part for me is probably like this morning with our daughter. Like the emotions are so hard for me to handle and to know, am I doing the right thing for her? She was in this like meek phase this morning where there was nothing you could do that wouldn't hurt her feelings. Whether it was like get dressed, she wants a different dress. She doesn't like her clothes. She didn't want to go to school. It was all these things. And the adult side of you is just like, stop. What are you doing? Like, I don't
now
get
you know
this.
what it feels like to be a husband.
Oh,
the emotions are really hard to do.
But I told Andrew, I was like, I can't tell this morning if it's like the pregnancy in me that has no patience or if it's the toddler in her that's irrational.
Yes.
But like we were butting heads so much. And the emotions side as an adult where you can kind of figure out irrationality and rationality is so hard for me. Because we're also just more physical people where it's like, just go get a bike.
Yeah.
Stop crying. I don't know. Which sounds horrible.
No, it's so good. I mean, we've been talking a lot about that, about how important it is not just to let kids feel, but to teach them to work through their feelings. And that's what a lot of what we're missing culturally right now. And so,
but how do you teach them without saying, stop, this is a wrong feeling? Because you want to like, I'm always caught between a rock and hard place of like, you need to I want to validate your feelings of why you're sad. But I'm also tired of saying like, what's wrong?
Right.
Okay. Because nothing is wrong. You're 3. I just made a gourmet breakfast for you and you're having a meltdown.
Yes. When you're 3, either nothing is wrong or everything is wrong all the time. Yes.
Yeah.
We're going to send y'all home with a feelings chart if there's not one in there already. But
we need that.
Yeah.
What you guys do is so good. Honestly, this is awesome to be here with you guys.
I have a million questions.
Your wisdom.
I got to book a session. Come back.
We want it to be awesome enough that you'll come back. All right. So that's our goal for the end of this time.
Yes.
Come back with a long questionnaire of how do I deal with my daughter?
I think, knowing whether it's a me problem or a you problem, I expect there'll be more of that where it's like, am I being too aggressive or like shutting you down or is this you? But then also with my son, I've realized this. It's way easier for me to say, no, don't do that than it is for me to say, great job, Jet. Like this morning he was playing with something and it was like a glass that he was going to break. I was like, put it down. It's like this panic. Yes. Your palms are sweating like something bad's about to happen, which, oh my gosh, that feeling of, the cortisol just getting injected in your chest. It's like a stress, which is, having control over that and not understanding that glasses will break. It's like, oh gosh, this is stressful. Controlling that and having self-awareness is really hard, but also me doing a better job at when Jet does listen to me and does put the glass down
Yeah.
saying, good job, buddy. That's way harder for whatever reason than it is for me to say, don't. So that's the hard thing. Right?
We're in the frustrating phase with our son as he just turned 2. Like discipline has started and he just wants none of it.
Yeah.
None of it whatsoever. You tell him to do something and he's like, nope. And as an adult, you're like, I don't know what to do with that.
What's next?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so good.
Well, out of living with that many little people in that stage, what other encouragement would you give to parents of littles?
Listen to the Raising Boys and Girls podcast.
Yeah, truly. Find a counselor. I think I've just noticed in ourselves and other people, you rush to like want your kids to figure it out so fast that you miss the joy of like experiencing it with your kids.
Yes.
And I noticed that this morning of why can't you just listen instead of being like, okay, there's a lot of curiosity here. There's a lot of patience that's needed. There's a lot that they're trying to figure out. And I need to like slow down and actually celebrate our kids for where they're at. But I don't know if that's like encouragement.
No,
encouragement for myself.
A beautiful reminder. Yeah.
Yeah, we do try to remind ourselves, there's a practice of imagine yourself at 80 years old reflecting on where you are right now.
Yeah.
And like it lends itself to this approach of, man, this is a little frustrating that Jet's breaking glasses, but so what? He's only in this phase right now for a short time, and just marinate in that. And these are the best days of our life. We try to remind each other of that all the time. Like these little things are so much fun and how sweet. And I have realized parenting is kind of like it's a long process of grieving. I feel like of like, I'll never get this back. I'll never get this phase back. Yeah. And it goes hand in hand with like a joy of how awesome those days are. Yes. But I get pretty teary eyed now, which it's not usually like me, but with our daughter, it's, she'll say things and you're just like, oh man. Then the other thing is, I think it is important. You got to find your village. They say it takes a village, and I feel like that's actually really important to get different perspectives, help in a lot of ways. Also, watching kids interact is like the best thing ever.
Yeah,
when 2 little 3-year-olds are playing together in the playroom, it's great. So,
can we just insert ourselves into a part of your village,
please?
Yeah,
y'all are just delightful.
Careful what you ask for, because I'll be calling you all the time.
Well, okay. So we want people to find you, obviously Instagram handles, also website. What's the website?
Familymade.com.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. We have our own podcast, Couple of Things, which is not as legit.
Will you say that again? Because it sounded like we have a podcast and a couple of things.
But sorry. Our podcast is called Couple
there
Things.
There you go.
Where
we're going to be couples.
Yeah. Because I think marriage is really awesome and people do it differently. So we just try to hear stories of how people do it.
Yeah.
So cool, y'all.
Yeah. And Sissy's been on it.
Yes. Yeah.
David was not able to make an appearance on it, but maybe next time.
I would love to. I would love to.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, David has a last question, but I found the quote.
Yes.
So Frederick Buechner is my favorite author. And he said, the place God calls you to is the place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet.
I love that.
Isn't that beautiful?
I love that.
Well, and I was thinking about, you both really have changed. What you have done in terms of your athletic careers, both of you, is just profound. And I was thinking as y'all were talking, I've loved this conversation. And I feel like you're talking so much about balance athletically, but I think you're talking about raising wholehearted kids and everything that you're saying. And what you did before was really significant. Obviously, you invested your young lives into what you did athletically, but I just was thinking, gosh, but it sure feels like potentially part of why God allowed all that to happen is to get you here, where now your voices are getting to share so much honesty and vulnerability and hope and truth and light into so many places. It just makes me so grateful that he established these voices that you have and gave you a place to share them. And now this is what you're sharing. So just honored to be with us.
You all. I love the way you said that. I was thinking the exact same thing listening to you all. so grateful for your
Thank you.
voices, both of you. Really thankful you'd lend them to our podcast.
Anytime.
We like to end with something fun and food related.
Yes.
So we jump from parenting to food.
Great.
And we've got a 2-part question for you.
Okay.
First is queso or guac. And the second is, what's your favorite kind of taco?
I'm going queso all day.
Okay.
Oh, dude.
I think I would order guac because it's probably the healthier version, but I love queso. And favorite taco right now is like a soft shell taco. All I can think of is ladybird taco. But they're like chicken with the pickled onions on it.
Salsa verde.
Yeah.
What? You like
That's my
that?
favorite.
Oh, it's
Wow.
with cojita
Yes,
cheese or whatever.
yes.
It's the best.
I don't really discriminate between tacos. I will say I prefer the soft shells, but I like any type of taco, any type of pizza. I'm there for it.
Pizza in a taco. That would be interesting.
Innovative.
Pizza tacos. I'm surprised it's not a thing.
We could try it.
Well, y'all.
Thank you for having
Thank
us.
you.
Oh my
both.
goodness. What a rich conversation.
Yeah.
Did you love today's episode? If so, would you mind sharing it with a friend? Send a quick text or email with the link to the show.
Join us next time for another episode where we'll bring you help and hope on your journey of raising boys and girls.